Hey, good morning, Undefeated. What's up? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me on this fine Thursday. I appreciate you guys. Man, what a workout it was. We'll start the show in just a few minutes. We'll wait for Ty Hayes to get in, and then we'll dial into it. Hold on one second. There you go. That's better. Let me know where you're coming from inside the comment box. Let me know where you guys are watching from. Man, yesterday was turned out to be a decent news day because you had the Regent right golf tournament, and then you had DaShawn Jones commit. So here he is, my boy, Ty Hayes. Ty, what's up, man?
Oh, what's going on? Just actually downloading.
Can't hear you.
Let's
see. Yeah, I can't hear you, Ty.
Can you hear me now?
Pat's coming to us from Bangkok? Ty, yeah. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear you, Ty. I'm not sure what's up.
All right. I'm going to hop off and then hop back in.
All right. He's going to log out and log back in. You can hear him? Oh, I can. Oh, I know what's the problem. No, Ty, that's on me. Ty, what's up?
Oh, what's going on?
You know what? I'm a mixer. I had the volume turned down because yesterday when I was cutting a video with Coach Sean, so I turned it down. Coach Smith, what's up, man? Pat P, what's going on? Jeff is in the house. Pat P's coming to us from Bangkok, Ty.
That's wild.
Right? Good morning, Vietnam. What's up? Jimmy Baker was one of the guys who was blocked too. So we had a mod come in here, a former mod, and block 350 people. Jimmy Baker was one of them, and so was Caitlin. So everyone is unblocked, and we're back rolling. So all good. Hey, Ty.
The dedication it takes to hit block 350 times is actually commendable.
For real. And the other thing is, so now we have two moderators right now. We have Ty and Coach Sean. And Ty, I gotta add you. But the thing is that then I had to go back and unblock 350 people like one by one. So it's all good. Whatever, man. We move forward. Ty, let's dive into it. And when we look on our big board, when we start with the secondary, I'm here for 30 minutes, Ty, and then you can close out the top of the hour. The big board right here. When we look to Alabama secondary, you had the addition of DaShawn Jones yesterday coming in from Wake Forest. Here's kind of a snapshot. So you have DaShawn Jones coming in from Wake Forest. You have Damani Jackson coming in from USC, Devontae Smith or Red Morgan, depending on what shakes out there. There could be some other movement. You have Keon Tapp from Michigan. So three transfers into Alabama secondary, and then you have Malachi Moore, who's a lone starter. The reserves, as you see listed. Ty, what's your thought about Alabama secondary now that they've added DaShawn Jones? And look, we have no idea if these are going to be the starters, but when you come in, he had 37 tackles last year, 3 interceptions. First of all, let's start with your thoughts on DaShawn Jones just committing, and then we'll just talk the overview of the secondary.
Yeah, actually, right when I got in here, the reason I kind of looked like I had that 1,000-yard stare is because I was in the process of downloading a bunch of the Wake Forest defense all 22 film I had, which I'm going to sit down today, watch some of that. But I'm happy, man. Yesterday, as we led off in the morning, Kyle, there was a little bit of one of those moments where you only get these moments when you do this, right? When you do a bunch of lives.
Yeah.
Where we start off talking about how DaShawn Jones, hopefully he commits. And then right as I get on at 8:22, he had tweeted, recruitment still open.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, okay, well, geez, where do we go? And especially in wake of, right? A little bit of a pun there. In wake of Kobe Minor canceling the visit. And then I was like, well, what do we do if he doesn't commit? Do we just roll with what we have? And I love the talent we have, but it's just the lack of numbers. So he's experienced. He's seasoned. He plays in a 4-2-5. He has experience in that. And I think that's exactly what you want, right? Coach Sean has talked about this all the time, where even in the A-Day, they were absolutely getting some of these younger corners with just simple concepts, like old school concepts, as Coach Sean would say.
Mm-hmm.
And while, listen, that's part of it. Like, you're going to learn in the fire. Being able to grow and learn, that's ultimately what you want, right? Like, you want to be able to take some time, learn, and not be thrown out there. That's not to say that I don't think that we'll see playtime from Azabian Brown, Jaleel Hurley, Jalen Mbakwe, Zay Mincy, but the staff liked him for a reason, and I'm happy they got this win.
So you pick up DaShawn Jones, and now you can see when we kind of look at the big board right here that DaShawn Jones, Damani Jackson, Devontae Smith, Keon Sabb, Malachi Moore. I have some guys below this banner that I'll bring up in terms of they could be reserves or who knows, maybe they're starters. I have no idea. But now when you look at this big board right here, Ty, what stands out? I mean, to me, when I look at this, there's guys that have come in, 3 different guys from 3 different schools, 3 different, conferences, Wake Forest, ACC, the former, the fall of the Pac-12. It's like, that's crazy that there's like no more Pac-12. And then another addition from the Big Ten coming to the secondary, and then your lone returner being Malachi Moore. Your snapshot view of the secondary and your thoughts on the secondary as we kind of look to the secondary way out in May. What's up, Ken? We see you inside the comment box.
Yeah, thank you for everybody hopping in here. Adam says Keon Sabb is don't sleep on Damani Jackson, man. Damani Jackson was a top 5 player in the nation, a player Nick Saban wanted real bad. You remember that was the same class.
Mm-hmm.
Denver Harris, Damani Jackson, and Saban wanted them both really bad. And especially a Damani Jackson runs a 10-2 500-meter dash, physical as can be. I've seen clips of Damani Jackson taking out lead blockers, right? Like he might be frustrated with the way the defense is being played when he was at USC, and someone would come across the middle and my goodness. And he says, well, when I think, yeah, but that's not on Damani Jackson, right? Like one part doesn't equal the whole. And it's also a lack of coaching. Alex Grinch's defense has been terrible for years, man. Since 2013, Washington State was the last good defense he had. So don't sleep on Damani, Adam. Damani's going to be a dude. Like, he's got the physicality it takes. I'm really excited about Damani Jackson. Like, I keep talking about him. I keep saying it.
Yeah.
He was even banged up at USC, and I think that guy right there is going to be a problem. I think he's going to be a real big problem. And I disagree about having a laid-back attitude, man. He's gotten the number 1 center in the nation. He's gotten the number 1 special teams player in the nation in terms of the kicker. He got Keon Sabb. He got Cuevas. He got a kid from Charlotte who I understand is from Charlotte, but he has high upside. Remember, where did the first cornerback taken in the NFL draft, where did he come from this year? So I hear you, but I don't think he's been passive, right? If he was passive, he would have just been like, okay, I'm rolling with the 5 stars we have. Mm-hmm. So I think he's absolutely attacking, but I think it's to the point of like, how do we attack and get purposeful additions? And I think he's been good at that. Hopefully they can land a King Mack. I have no idea what's happening there. I just really like King Mack's upside. Hopefully they can land a Geno Vandermark. Have no idea what's happening there, but I like depth on the interior. But talking about this secondary, Kyle, I really like this back end between Devontae Smith, Keon Sabb, Malachi Moore. Excited for DaShawn Jones, but I think Damani Jackson could be I think at the end of the year, we might be talking about him being like, what an incredible addition we made in Damani Jackson.
Yeah, I think when you look to Damani Jackson, there was a lot of hype on him in high school, and I think going out to USC is probably underdeveloped. And I think I asked Coach Sean about this last night on Wednesday night, is how big is his ceiling, right? And I think it is very high. I don't think he's anywhere close to his ceiling. And I think you pair Damani Jackson up with Mo Lindquist, and I think you're going to see somebody really explode in their overall talent development. I think with a player like Devontae Smith, he's a player that has leadership, and he's a vet and he's a professional. But I think with a player like Red Morgan, he just kind of has that dog mentality. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the first kind of freshmen to really step on the field and contribute. DaShawn Jones, look, I mean, Alabama needed some experience at the secondary position, 1,000,000%. After, a lot of guys left, including Kool-Aid and Terry onto the NFL. we didn't know who was going to be the corner. We knew Damani was going to be, at the forefront. But on the other side, Xavier Brown will grow into a good corner, but you need some guys to come up with some experience. Think about this from the standpoint of the SEC talent at the wide receiver position. Think about the first couple of games, how Alabama is going to be challenged within the secondary, even those weaker teams, right? A Western Kentucky, a South Florida. I mean, these type of teams are absolutely going to try to expose Alabama's secondary as they build that cohesiveness, which will be fine because Alabama will only get better and be ready for the games where they're going to be ultra challenged in games like LSU, at Tennessee, other teams who have elite wide receivers. I mean, I guess you could theoretically say the first time they'll be tested will be against Georgia, right? In that game with Carson Beck and all of the weapons that they have. I mean, it's Georgia Bulldog football. And I think the more that Georgia has changed their offense from a 3-yard and cloud of dust, that's why they've had more success. I don't think we ever viewed Georgia as having elite wide receivers, kind of looked at them more as a ground and pound, but now they're ultra. I mean, they're a balanced type team, and credit to Kirby Smart for doing that. That's like Nick Saban did it, 6-7 years ago, and now you're starting to see all the programs catch up to Alabama in terms of having a balanced type, high potent offense. And under Coach Kalen DeBoer, he'll do that too. And getting to Adam's comments earlier, I started. I don't like DeBoer's laid back attitude. This is interesting because I think the two personalities between Coach Saban and DeBoer are completely different. Sure, Saban he's a funny cat, right? And his personality is electric. But on the football field, he's very fiery. He's intense. He has that fire in his belly. His competitive attitude is unlike anything we've seen. I mean, he's the most competitive natured coach that we've had, and that spilled onto his team. With that said, Coach Kalen DeBoer, we have yet to see that type of fire from him. And I think it's just because we haven't seen him coach in an actual game. We don't know, behind closed doors what it's like, but it seems like he's a player's coach. It seems like they have gravitated towards him. And I think there is that fire in the belly. But, it is interesting that he said that he doesn't cuss when we were all kind of, as Alabama fans, waiting for Nick Saban to kind of drop a F-bomb and kind of get that team going. And I think his personality reflected on Alabama coming back, like that Mississippi State game, because it was interesting. There was a while where we're like, what's going on with Coach Saban? He's like not mad anymore. Bring back. Remember they were like, make Saban mad again, and then against Mississippi State he got mad, and the team got good. Like so, and who said that? They released that was Miss Terry. She was like, you need to get on him. So I'm sure that fire in the belly is somewhere there. I just don't know. When we're going to see that, but I believe that you'll see it the first time Alabama gets punched in the mouth, and they will. I mean, this is the big boy game. You have some ultra challenging opponents in the first half with Wisconsin and Georgia. We can overlook those first couple of opponents, but as Coach Saban said just recently, one of his most, one of the biggest losses that he has in the career is early on, when he felt he was invincible. And who was it? Louisiana Monroe? Was it them? Ty, that beat them, right?
Yep.
Nathan, what's up, man? Nathan wants a shout out. Give him a shout out, Ty.
Nathan, happy you're in here on this Thursday morning. Thank you for spending your time with us. As I always say, man, time and health are probably your two most valuable assets that you have. And so for you to be here with us, spending your time with us, I really appreciate that more than I could probably eloquate to you, my man. So really appreciate you being in here on this Thursday morning. Clink, my man, happy you're in here as well.
Yeah, what's up, Clink? And what's up, Ricky? We see you inside the comment box. It's raining like raindrops of salt. Tuscaloosa today, Ty, we're under a tornado watch. In like when I first moved here, there was a lot of anxiety about, being around these tornado watches and this and that. Not to take the weather lightly, but that's the life that we live. I mean, you're in Dallas, you got or in Denton, so you get storms aplenty, but it's just kind of the world that we live in. So, stay safe if you're out there, and we'll keep you posted. Speaking of dangerous situations, Ty, when you look to Alabama's schedule, which teams do you think will challenge Alabama's secondary most, being with the quarterback, being with the arsenal that they have coming back? When you look to Alabama's schedule, who will be a challenge for this secondary?
That's a good question. I think Missouri is going to be a really interesting team. My biggest question for Missouri, though, is how do you supplement the loss of Cody Schrader? He was fantastic. I mean, genuinely one of the most entertaining players in all of college football to watch last season. He did it all, but they still have Luther Burden. They still have got a lot of weapons. Brady Cook is back. Drinkwitz's offense is pretty darn good. I am just so happy, Kyle, that they didn't get Dylan Edwards. And I'm surprised that they didn't full court press Dylan Edwards. If I was in charge of Missouri, I would have absolutely full court pressed Dylan Edwards. Ricky says Tennessee and Missouri. I don't disagree with you, Ricky. I don't disagree with you whatsoever, especially with that hypo veer and shoot concept. I mean, it's a good offense. And I know that that's going to rub people the wrong way because, Bama, Tennessee, and hey, I'm here for it. But Tennessee has to replace a quarterback. They got to figure out some things. Now their defense, I think their defense should be pretty darn good. I think that's the part of Tennessee that we haven't been talking enough about because their offense has the ability to be high powered. And I love EMI Alieva, right? That was my favorite quarterback in that class. OU, if their offensive line is good, that's the biggest question I have for Oklahoma's offense right now is offensive line and tight end. They're replacing every offensive lineman from last year, every starter at least. Now, that being said, Kyle, they have Bill Bedenbaugh. And I don't know how many people keep up with NFL contracts. It seems like Bill Bedenbaugh offensive linemen are always resetting the market for the NFL offensive contracts. Like he develops them. He sends them. Matter of fact, Tyler Guyton, who just went to the first round of the NFL draft to the Dallas Cowboys, he was a defensive tackle for much of his career and slightly started transitioning at TCU. Bill Bedenbaugh's got an eye for talent now. And so he can probably figure it out. But they have a 5-star quarterback, Jackson Arnold, who won Elite 11 MVP, who won Gatorade Player of the Year. And in their receiving room, they've got Petaway, who is a slot guy who's very fast. They have got Anderson, who's 6'4", got some speed. They've got Jaden Gibson, who's 6'5". He's got some speed. Then they add in Deion Burks. And Deion Burks already in that spring game is looking like he's going to be a problem. So I'm very happy OU is on the back end of that schedule because it allows our secondary time. And of course, then you have Georgia, right? And even though Georgia might not have a Luther Burden, it's still a principled offense, man. And it's not the Munkin offense, but it's good enough to where you cannot sleep on them. So you have some great challenges. It's why Coach Sean and I continue to say we're very happy that we have USF early because USF runs that same veer and shoot that does Tennessee. And that's going to be a great learning experience for the secondary.
I want to transition into the early season Heisman watch, right? I mean, we're in May and we know we're talking all things under the sun, but Ty, I mean, here's and I'll put the big board up here. But here's an early look. Up top, it says Carson Beck, Quinn, Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, and then your boy Nico there at the bottom. Ty, what stands out from these? I mean, look, I don't think you're a gambling guy, but when you're looking at odds and, what kind of jumps out to your mind right here when you look to this Heisman board?
Dylan Gabriel is super interesting on there. He's a super experienced quarterback. Yeah. But I'm going to be honest with you, Kyle. It's nothing to do with Dylan Gabriel. I don't know that Oregon's offense is that type of offense to put up eye-popping numbers, right? Oregon's offense really likes the quick pass, which Dylan Gabriel is going to absolutely excel at. It really is a match made in heaven. I just wonder, like, Sark is going to push it deep. And if Quinn can get his footwork consistent, that guy is so dangerous. When he's on, he is a different level of dangerous, right? It's just all about that consistency. Will Howard is also very interesting to me. I would probably have Milroe over Will Howard. Jackson Dart, I get just because Lane Kiffin, right? The Mad Hatter. I understand that completely. But I might have Milroe above Gabriel and Howard just because Milroe has an unbelievable deep ball. He was hitting it the second highest in the nation, only behind Jaden Daniels. And ladies and gentlemen, when you looked, there was a wide margin between Jaden Daniels, Milroe, and everybody else for that deep shot. So I'm really, really interested in this right here. Gabriel is interesting to me. I get it, though, because Gabriel's a really solid quarterback, man. Really solid.
I think when you look to value on this board, I think Milroe has the biggest value right now, early on. just because, I mean, look, I think we all know that. I mean, I think maybe I still feel that Carson Beck would be overvalued here. Quinn, it is what it is. Dylan Gabriel, I think there's some value there too, just because you look at the system he's in and you look at how many yards that Bo Nix threw for. I think. Let me ask you, Undefeated. Do you think that Dylan Gabriel is a better quarterback than Bo Nix? I would say, like very much so. Ty, am I right on that?
I think that he is. That's tough. Because I don't know how much development is left in Dylan Gabriel, but I know that Gabriel's floor, I would say Gabriel's floor is much higher than Bo Nix. I don't know if he's got as big of an arm as Bo Nix, right? Like, it's not like Dylan Gabriel's going to turn and burn a 60-yard pass down the field. But what he is going to do is he's not going to make mistakes. He's a very cerebral quarterback. And that's why in that Oregon system, as much as I would put Milroe, like the only quarterback I could see, honestly, and I know that people are going to say I have a bias here, and you might be right, but the only quarterback I could see just putting above Jalen Milroe is Quinn, but that's also because of Sark. And they have some really good wide receivers. Wingo's going to be a beast. Jonte Cook, I love Jonte Cook's game. Kyle, I had an event, a 7-on-7 event, and Jonte Cook was out there. And the team that he was playing, their coach was over there. Well, I meant an Alabama bias, Adam, not a Jalen Milroe bias. But whenever I was over there, their team, the coach that was coaching the team that Jonte Cook was playing, he was talking to Jonte Cook, chirping at him. Jonte Cook straight up told the cornerback covering him, "This is the route I'm running." Then he looked at the coach, told the coach, and then burned him off the line. Made him hit his knees and just instantly touchdown. And he kept doing it. Like, the kid is really, really good. And he's like their wide receiver 3 right now. He could be in for a big season. So I get Quinn, but I would probably have Jalen Milroe at number 2 because, like you said, for the first time, Jalen Milroe has a quarterback coach who is going to scheme things for him. And what do we see when Steve Sarkisian is at his best? He is scheming things for Quinn Ewers. That's why they picked on Caleb Downs. It was schemed. It was beautiful. Now Alabama has that, and I think Jalen Milroe is really going to succeed with being able to be schemed for.
Yeah, I think like with Bo Nix, I was just really shocked. I think he hit his max early on in his career, and I think he went to the right place, Oregon. He was able to have a lot of weapons there. But what was interesting is that the Broncos took him in the first round. I would have thought you could have had Bo Nix later on. I think everybody started panicking and getting quarterbacks. But whatever the case, I just wanted to ask you on that because quarterbacks started to fly off the board, and that's just how it was. But I like Jalen Milroe, and I still feel that we haven't seen Jalen Milroe just really utilize his legs. I think we know that he's able to do it, but he hasn't like taken over a game just by kind of using both, air and ground attack. There's been some questions inside the comment box from Tony and from Ricky asking about Arch Manning. And, they're Tony, first of all, is clowning. And he's like, Arch Manning can walk on water and heal the sick. And Ricky is saying, does Arch Manning play this year after a spring game? We talked about that a little bit in his overall performance, which was really impressive. But Quinn's certainly the guy at Texas. And all it takes is one season. Ty, I guess before I ask you, like, this Texas team, with what they have, is it a step back wide receiving unit and their weapons from last year? Because, I mean, Sanders, Worthy, Donnie Mitchell, I mean, those were some absolute gamers last year for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I think that even with what they have, Wingo's real good. And I know Isaiah Bond is really, really good. I know that's going to sting people, but he is, right? I'm not here to necessarily tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what I believe is the truth. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think Wingo has the highest upside on that roster. He's good, man. Real good. A.D. Mitchell was a different problem. For his height to be able to run routes the way he could, like they had a whip route clip of AD Mitchell when he was at Georgia, and he's like 6'3", 6'4", and he's running a whip route as well as Xavier Worthy would run it. That's a problem. That's a whole problem. I think that their wide receiver room, and I have to be careful with because I still think it's going to be one of the best in the nation. But I don't know, I don't know that you have an AD Mitchell. I don't know that you have a guy who's running a 4-2 basically in Xavier Worthy. Now, Isaiah Bond has a lot of speed. He clocked a 10.49 in high school, so the kid can flat out fly. But they still have a very talented running back room, even with losing Brooks. Like, they're still very good there. Their offensive line is going to be fantastic, right? Like, their offensive line is going to be very good. They still have Banks. They've got Campbell. They've got some guys on the interior that they're really excited about. Their secondary should be better. I'm interested. They got Manny Muhammad, and that's probably one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player, whenever he got acclimated and started playing on that Texas roster. I think that he is going to be a dude. And linebacker play, right? Anthony Hill is special. Anthony Hill's a special player. I really wanted him at Bama. I got to watch him at Denton Ryan for years. He's incredible. So, and people asking if we see Arch, here's and I don't want to jinx anything. Quinn hasn't had a full season since high school. Like, he has, even in high school, he was getting hurt. He has not played a full season of high school or football since I believe his sophomore year. It's been a while. So there is a real possibility you see Arch. I certainly hope he plays a full healthy season. I've always said I root for the kids that I got to watch. I got to cover Quinn. So I root for him to do well. Texas is going to be very good, but I would say that their wide receiver room took a step back, though it's still a wide receiver room I think 90% of college football would burn down a barn for, right? It's still going to be really, really good. So step back is kind of a relative term.
When you look to the preseason SEC rankings, I'm looking at CBS, and I'll put a graphic on the screen in just a second. But 1, 2, and 3 are UGA, Texas, and Ole Miss. Number 4 is actually LSU, and then number 5 is Alabama. Your take on that? I mean, because this is one of the first times that Alabama hasn't been 1 or 2. And that's fine. I mean, I think that Alabama fans have feelings about that clearly because, 1, the target isn't on your back. And number 2, you feel that, this team can still be really effective under Coach Kalen DeBoer. Your thoughts and kind of where would you, if you honestly look and don't shoot, Ty, and I'll release my rankings as well. I asked you about the quarterbacks, Ty, and I never even gave you my quarterback rankings. But how would you rank the SEC today on May 9th?
Can you give me that list again? That way I can write it down and kind of.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up a graphic here. So this is how CBS has it. So CBS has Georgia 1, Texas 2, Ole Miss 3, LSU 4, Alabama 5, Missouri 6, Tennessee 7, Oklahoma 8, number 9, Kentucky, and number 10, Texas A&M.
Well, it's a bad day to be an Aggie when you're behind Kentucky.
Right. Hey, undefeated. Will you put your 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like your top 5 in the SEC? Go ahead, Ty. I'm going to build this graphic out real quick.
So, listen, Texas made the playoffs last year. They beat Alabama last year. So even though it's a new year, that's one where I'm like, okay, fine, right? Fine. They've been on a good tear. They have continuity at the coaching position, though. Let's remember, Kalen DeBoer beat Sark with a team that didn't have this roster. I would easily put Bama over LSU. They don't have Mason Smith anymore. Now they got Bo Davis. That's one of my favorite defensive line coaches in the nation. Yes. He's going to be good, but he can't will talent there. They don't have numbers. Brian Kelly, Kyle, just got on TV or on an interview and said, oh, well, we're not in the business of buying players. And I understand what he means because they were in it for Dominic Williams, who was transferring from TCU. It was between Texas, OU, LSU, Missouri. Well, Brian Kelly, while I agree, you might not be in the business of buying players. While I agree, you might not want to do that. Oh, you got him now, and you
Mm-hmm.
needed him. You had to have that guy. You don't have the numbers on the defensive front. So I agree with you. Don't buy players because maybe he's not worth that 1.2 million, which is the reported figure that LSU was asked to pay. But you had to have him, right? He would have been apparently the highest paid player on LSU's roster. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have numbers on the defensive front. So I don't, and I've said this before, I have questions about LSU. I love Nuss. He's not a mobile quarterback. And if you're not a
Mm-hmm.
mobile quarterback, I good luck in the SEC. You got to be spectacular. You got to have a spectacular offensive line. I even think there's a principled argument to put Bama over Ole Miss, right? Because Lane Kiffin does Lane Kiffin things. And sometimes he coaches where he's trying to prove a point as opposed to trying to win a game, though they did get a lot of talent, right? They got a lot in the transfer portal, a whole lot. But I still question that defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to do this, at worst, I would have Bama 4. At best, I'd have them 3 right now. So 3 to 4 is where I would put Alabama. I don't see how LSU's above them. Like while I could probably formulate an argument to you to put Ole Miss there because of what they did in the transfer portal, getting a Walter Nolan, getting a Trey Amos, getting all of these players on the defensive side of the ball. Prince Umam Lalian, I super apologize for butchering that. But you know what? I'm going to go Georgia, Texas, Bama.
That's exactly that's what I was gonna do. You know, I'm having a really difficult time with where to put Ole Miss right now in Texas because I feel that Ole Miss has loaded up enough to certainly be, I don't know, maybe even number 2. That's how talented they are. With that said, I still feel that Alabama versus Ole Miss this year, I'm going with Alabama. I know they're not playing, but at this point in time, I feel that they're better team still. I honestly think if those two teams played this year, my goodness, Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer head to head, man. I don't think Texas plays Ole Miss this year, right? Do they?
I don't
We'll have
know.
to look it up. Can Sark and Lane Kiffin? That would be one hell of a game.
That'd be so fun.
Right? That'd be crazy. So I think I might go Georgia, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, LSU, maybe even Missouri over LSU. And you could flip-flop those teams.
I think I'd go Missouri over LSU. Missouri had a top 25 scoring defense in the nation last year. I'm saying.
Like, it's weird. You just, Missouri, look, Eli Drinkwitz, man, that guy is overlooked constantly. I don't know why. I think it's because he doesn't seem like an overall, like, big alpha male type guy. But the guy can coach. He can coach. And he had them in the top 10 last year. Top 10. Man, they were playing Georgia really tough. So, you look at those teams, Oklahoma, this is crazy. Imagine Oklahoma last year. Welcome to SEC. Okay. Oklahoma was up at the top of the Big 12, right? For a long time. Even beat Texas last year. Welcome to the SEC. Look where they're ranked in the preseason. Right? Way down at 8. The SEC don't play. Imagine if you were ranking the teams like if the Pac-12 teams had merged. Man, I don't know. So this is going to be a gauntlet. We haven't even put the rest of the teams, up on the board. But I think Georgia, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU. That's kind of how I'd rank the teams going in. Watch for Tennessee and Oklahoma. This would be a one hell of a bracket if you did 1 to 8, right? Georgia and Oklahoma to start out. Texas versus Tennessee. Number 3 would be Ole Miss and Missouri. And the 4 and 5 game would be LSU and Bama. Whew.
Yeah, people are asking why we're putting Texas ahead of Bama. And I hear you because, DeBoer got it, and then they lost their 2 guys on the interior. So why I would do it, they got the number 1 edge in the nation last year. They're now going to pair him with Anthony Hill, and Anthony Hill is a problem. Just point blank, period. That young man, number 0 on their defense, he's a problem. He gave Alabama fits. He's just a dude. Now, their secondary, I do agree, right? Like Adam says, their secondary has questions. I can agree with you there, and especially after losing Brooks, that wasn't good. But Manny Muhammad, talent-wise, I mean, Saban wanted that kid bad.
Mm-hmm.
Saban
Mm-hmm.
really wanted him. So I think that when you pair Colin Simmons, who is a 5-star number 1 edge in the nation, with an Anthony Hill, already they're going to be much better from the exterior. I believe they still have Alfred Collins on the interior, and I think he's going to have a step-up year, but we'll have to see. Naturally, we'll have to see. Their middle linebackers are still going to be very good between
Mm.
Binda and depending on where they put Anthony Hill. So those two right there are going to be really good. And I don't know why, I always forget their nickel defender's name, but he is such a smart player. He's the kid who came off the, God, I can't remember his name to save my life, but he's the kid who came off the route whenever Bama played Texas, and it wasn't the first interception Milroe threw. It was the one where the defensive back completely bailed from his route and
Yeah.
like intercepted the ball. He's back, and he's a really cerebral defensive back. He's a really smart guy. I really like his game, but I think Adam, I think the thing is like offensively, I think they're going to be pretty darn good still, right? And they beat Bama last year, even though Bama, now Kalen DeBoer beat Texas. So it's one of those things where I wouldn't be mad if you put Bama over Texas, but I also kind of like being the hunted or the
Yeah.
hunter as
Yeah.
opposed to the hunted, right? Like I kind of
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
I
So
mean, if you're Kalen DeBoer, you're like, man, Missouri's at 5. Tennessee's at 6, and we're at 7. Ty, close out the top of the hour, man. I appreciate it. Will you please support Ty like you guys would support me? Ty does such a great job for us, true professional, right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Ty has his own YouTube channel, which is Around the Table Sports. He's also on Bleacher Report and does a hell of a job for us right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Ty, I'll leave the graphic up, man, so you can mess with it. But I appreciate you being here. I will be back as news happens and periodically live. YouTube, all of that and more. So I appreciate you guys joining me this morning on my segment, and Ty will close you guys out.
appreciate it, Kyle. Appreciate it. This is funny, man. This is funny. He better stop playing Bon Jovi at practice. That's pretty darn funny, Adam. I got to give you that. Now, one addition to that Texas secondary that I did forget to mention, ladies and gentlemen, that absolutely will be a difference maker is they picked up Andrew Makuba. Jahdae Barron, thank you so much. I don't know why this is the second time I've forgotten Jahdae Barron's name, and I don't know why. I think what it is whenever whenever I try and cover as much football as I do, names can kind of blend together, right? Jahdae Barron, really talented guy. Really, really, really talented guy. And I believe he's back. Someone had told me he was back. He is really talented. He's going to be a big deal for that secondary. But I don't see him on their roster unless he's got like a crazy weird number. If he's not back, that certainly helps Alabama's case because he is a very cerebral defensive back. He was a fantastic nickel for them. I'm not seeing him on this roster. Oh, yep, there he is. I thought he was like number 26 or something. He's number 7 now. Jahdae Barron. Yep, there he is. So, yeah, but Andrew Makuba transferring from Clemson to Texas is really going to happen, or really going to make a lot of good things happen for them, in my opinion. I only remember it because it makes me think of Mark Barron. Fair enough. I'll have to remember that connection. Get green names and helmets. It's if you're a fan funder, to Kelvin. If you're a fan funder, your name turns into green. Thank you for being here this morning, though. UGA and Texas play in the regular season, thus I don't think they end up 1-2. No, I 100% agree. Max. UGA, like, they got to play Clemson. They got to play Texas. Texas has got to play Michigan, but Michigan isn't the Michigan of last year. I don't think he's relaxed, Adam. I think it's just a different approach, man. So there's different ways to teach, right? Like, I had a professor that was super intense, fantastic professor. I also had a professor that I would consider the top of her craft, like one of the best in the nation, and she was much more relaxed. And it was just like two different ways to get the same result, right? I don't think that there's a one size fits all for how to coach And so what I do like is that DeBoer is being authentic. I don't want him to try and be Nick Saban because a lot of people have left Alabama and tried to become Nick Saban, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. I believe in the description, DeKelvin. There should be a link to become a fan funder, my man. I believe it should be in the description. Ole Miss doesn't have to be better than Alabama to have a better record than Alabama. I think that's true. That's fair. What teams can outscore our offense? I think only 3: Georgia, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. I think you're fair there, Adam. I think Oklahoma, they have a new offensive coordinator. I'm really interested to see what Seth Luttrell does with this offense. He's a much more principled offensive coordinator than was Jeff Lebby. Jeff Lebby now being the head coach at Mississippi State. I think Texas also can score a lot. I'm not saying they can, but they can score up there with anybody, right? Sark is a brilliant offensive mind, man. A brilliant offensive mind. And they retain Quinn. Getting Isaiah Bond was big for them. And that, we'll see. Adam, you say you have UGA, Bama, Texas, Ole Miss. Like I said, my man, I can understand the argument for putting Bama over Texas, but I also very much well understand I very much well understand having Texas there, just because I've always been of the mindset like, okay, if you beat us, you have bragging rights until the get back. And I think that there will be a get back. Don't get me wrong, but they're going to be a solid team. Venable is stealing signals. Yeah, I mean, listen, that Oklahoma defense, they now have Zach Alley as the defensive coordinator, young defensive coordinator, and I like him a lot better than I like Ted Roof, JT. I'm not going to lie to you. Whenever Oklahoma was assembling that staff, I was looking at the hires Brent Venables was making, and I was like, Miguel Chavez at defensive ends coach. Like, he's not a well-known name, but you listen to players, they freaking love that guy. I mean, they would run through a brick wall for Miguel Chavez. So I was like, that's a great hire. Todd Bates is a defensive line coach. I was like, oh, that's a great hire. They have Emmett Jones, wide receiver coach. That's a great hire. I mean, they're recruiting wide receivers very well. DeMarco Murray, running back coach. I mean, come on now. There's a reason why I wanted if the running back coach at Alabama was opened, I was always like, oh man, if we can get Mark Ingram in here, that'd be fantastic. Because you imagine being a running back. No, seriously, let's do a little thought exercise right now. You imagine being a running back and into your living room walks DeMarco Murray. And you're like, oh, not only did you excel at the highest levels in college, you excelled at the highest levels in the NFL. And now you're being a really successful college coach. So yeah, that makes sense to me. But I agree with you. The only hire they made, retaining Bill Bedenbaugh, fantastic. Getting Schmitty from Texas A&M, the strength and conditioning coach, fantastic. I never understood the Ted Roof hire. I never understood it. The only argument I can give you, JT, is that Brent Venables trusted Ted Roof. And what I mean when I say that is I think Ted Roof understood very personally what Brent Venables wanted to achieve from a defensive perspective, and what it allowed Brent Venables to do was transition from a defensive coordinator to a CEO. So I think that there's an argument that Roof was always just a placeholder for him for Brent Venables being able to transition from just being a defensive coordinator to being a CEO, to being a head coach. And he had to have somebody that he could trust. But that's the only argument I can give you. Only argument I can give you. I would pick us, but I wouldn't bet the farm on it. Missouri is going to be a good game, man. The biggest question for Missouri is how do you replace those two defensive backs you lost? Because remember, if you're asking me, Ty, what would be your argument for Missouri and LSU, right? Why would you maybe argue Missouri over LSU? Because I know that sounds crazy. LSU is LSU, and I still expect them to be a very good team, right? Like, they lost some wide receivers. It's LSU. They'll replace some wide receivers. That's not something I would be concerned about in the slightest if I was an LSU fan. Replacing your quarterback, that's tough, but that defense, you made some great hires. How much of a turnaround can you have in year one? Missouri retains their best wide receiver. They retain their quarterback. They still have some pieces on the defense that I think are going to be intriguing. They get Williams Nwaneri, who is a top 10 player in the nation. this past recruiting cycle, and he's kind of a tweener where it was like they didn't. I know some people were recruiting him as more of an outside guy, some people more of an inside guy. So it just depends on the needs of that defense. He's got intriguing ability. But how are you replacing Cody Schrader? And I know I keep saying that, but Cody Schrader was such an integral part to that offense. I mean, he was such an important piece to that offense. He allowed them to do things. That to me is a really interesting one. LSU and Missouri. But looking at this list, the preseason top 5 by 24/7 Sports, I vehemently disagree with 4 and 5. I think that I think it's very hard to make an argument to put LSU above Alabama. And I really don't understand the argument for putting LSU over Alabama, if I'm being quite honest. Alabama retains Jalen Milroe, right? Outside of, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. Sure. Jaden Daniels was phenomenal. Jaden Daniels ain't there no more. He's not there. Malik Neighbors isn't there. Brian Thomas isn't there. Like I said, they'll have good running, or they'll have good wide receivers. That's just what they do. And their defense was terrible. They get Bo Davis, they get Corey Raymond, they make some really good defensive hires, but do you have the personnel? I don't know. I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying you got to show me. Because last year you relied on Jaden Daniels and his versatility as a passer and as a runner. Jaden Daniels was phenomenal at hitting the deep shot. The only quarterback that hit it at a higher rate than Jalen Milroe. So what you got to convince me of is that Nussmeier can hit the deep shot. It's going to be Daniel Denny, Nussmeier. I disagree with people on your channel acting like the sky is falling on Bama. Coach Jans and Sean say they don't think the Bama secondary will not be good. I think that we'll have a conversation about that tonight, Ronald. We'll have a conversation. I'm going to try and hop on this evening for a bit with Coach Sean, Coach Jay. Love those guys. But their analysis is sound, man, and they're going to give you their honest opinion. I really respect that about them. And Coach Sean, he's going to put you on game, man. He's going to put you on game. But speaking of this list, I just don't understand the argument for LSU above Alabama. Yeah, they have Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins is a monster. They have got to figure out how to use him still. They've got to figure out how to use him still. I don't know. Alabama lost a lot. Yeah, LSU lost a lot. LSU lost a lot. LSU lost the Heisman Trophy winner. They lost some key pieces. I don't know. Ole Miss, I can even see a reason for Ole Miss being ahead of Alabama, even though I would probably reverse it. I would reverse it. I can understand the argument of Ole Miss over Alabama before I can understand the argument of LSU over Alabama. The LSU over Alabama one is one that just fundamentally falls on me. And if anybody in the chat has a reason as to why they think LSU is over Alabama, I'd love to hear it. Because for the life of me, I don't know what that reasoning would be. If you're saying, oh, well, Ole Miss, why would Ole Miss be above Alabama? Allow me to play devil's advocate real fast. They did fantastic work in the transfer portal. Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin. If he decides to take it serious, he's a dangerous play caller. Their defense is still ran by Pete Golding, right? So it's not like they're going to be a top 10 defense, I don't believe, but they could be good enough. If they could be a top 25 defense and scoring defense, that's good enough. Good enough to do damage. Not good enough to hold you to 0 points, but good enough to allow their offense to flourish. And I think their offense is going to be good. I don't worry about their offense. I have more questions about their defense, but like I said, you get Trey Amos, you get Isaiah Hamilton, the kid from Houston, you get Walter Nolan, you get Princely Umamilalian, and I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing his last name, but Princely, the edge rusher from Florida. You get some guys out there. You get some guys out there who I think, can make an impact on that defense. So even though I would put Bama above Ole Miss, I understand Ole Miss over Bama way before I understand LSU over Bama. The love for Brian Kelly is why they are over us. And listen, I think Brian Kelly is a solid. I think Brian Kelly's a solid coach. Kalen DeBoer just coached in a national championship. So where's his love? They give Brian Kelly love for making a national championship game. And listen, I agree. That's hard. It is not easy making it to it's not easy making it to the playoffs. It's not. It's not easy winning that first playoff game and then making it to the national championship. It's very difficult. So I agree. Brian Kelly's a solid coach, but Kalen DeBoer just did the same thing. So where's his love? Right? Like if that's the parameter of which they're putting LSU above Alabama, then in my opinion, it's a null. Because DeBoer just did the same thing. He just made it to a natty in year 2. He made it to a national championship in year 2. He inherited a Washington program that, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they 4-8? Not only were they 4-8, but they were ran by a defensive-minded coach. So he had to have an entirely different philosophy change. They went 11-2 year 1, and then 12-1 year 2. I mean, come on. Right? Like if we're giving LSU over Bama because of Brian Kelly and his success, which I agree, Brian Kelly's a heck of a coach. Even I will make a little bit of fun of Brian Kelly, but at the end of the day, I will be honest with you. He can coach ball. He can coach. But so too can Kalen DeBoer. That's the one that I really don't understand. But I have been on record for about the past 2 months now saying I have questions about LSU. I have real questions about LSU. And I have questions about just about every team out there. I have more questions about LSU than any other top 5 SEC team. I do. I really do. I have questions about Alabama. Sure, right? Because I want to see it. I have a lot of questions about LSU. Texas just always loses games they shouldn't, and I'm not. Look, I think you are right there. Texas does have a tendency of kind of losing a game that they shouldn't. What I will tell you and offer you, Adam, I don't ever consider the Red River rivalry, the Red River shootout, as a game either team shouldn't lose. It's one of the most impassioned, heated rivalries in the sport. And rivalries like that, it's one of those games where all conventional wisdom goes out the door whenever Texas and OU play each other. Like, I picked Texas this year. But I did tell all of my friends, because we do the SEC Connect. I did tell them, I was like, hey, if you don't get to Dylan Gabriel and they're able to stretch the field on y'all, I think y'all could be in trouble. So you got to get to Dylan Gabriel. They couldn't get to him. They couldn't get to him. So you're right, Adam. You're certainly right. Like, I look at the Kansas loss. That's one where it's like, okay, that's a game you shouldn't lose. But if Texas loses to Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl, you right before I could say it, Adam, right before I could say it, you beat me to it. This is the exact analogy I was about to create. It's almost like Alabama-Auburn, especially at Jordan-Hare. I have seen Alabama teams that were far superior to Auburn, like at every single level, far superior, either get taken to overtime or lose, because for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People are going to step on that. This is the Ole Miss year rake for the 5th straight season, I guess. I agree with you, JT. There's a reason why. Like, I think Ole Miss has got talent, but Ole Miss more than, okay, this is going to sound weird, right? Because I definitely have to see it from Alabama. But if I'm just looking at this list as they currently have it, and if I'm saying UGA, Texas, Ole Miss, out of those 3, what team do I need the show me the most from? It's Ole Miss, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Like, Ole Miss, I have to see it. I have to see it. Texas, I can give Texas the benefit of the doubt because I've watched Sark trend in a positive direction, really start fixing some of the problems that were seeped into that program, because there were deep problems that were seeped into the Texas program. And I got to give my hats off to Sark. He's done a really good job at fixing that, fixing the development, and now putting Texas in a position where they're in a conversation for being a top team. And respect to that. I got to see it from Ole Miss. And I agree 100% with you, Greg. We talked about this on the SEC Connect not long ago. What's the difference between James Franklin and Lane Kiffin? What's the biggest? Here's a question for everybody. What's the biggest win of Lane Kiffin's career? Is it 2019 A&M? Seriously, what's the biggest win of Lane Kiffin's career as a head coach at Ole Miss? 2019 A&M might be the answer. Interested in hearing from all of you. DeKelvin says Texas struggles against inferior teams all the time. I don't think they can hold up in the SEC. They only get up for certain teams. I think that you're right here, DeKelvin, but I guess my counter question to you would be this. Would being in the SEC make them get up every week? And I don't know, right? Like, but that's the question I would ask you based off of that line right there, that they only get up for certain teams. Do you think it's because when they play Kansas, they feel like they're going to sleepwalk them? And if that's the case, do you feel like they'll get up for the SEC? I'm not providing the answer. Very interested in hearing your thoughts on that, man. JT83 says entire team full of mercenaries coached by a man-child and defense ran by a guy that liked to drop Anderson and Turner into coverage more than 0 times a game. I'm not worried. That's like I said, JT, more than any team. Honestly, more than any team, I need more show me from Ole Miss than I do OU right now. Because at least with OU, I'm like, okay, Brent Venables, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt for like this year and next year because you inherited a team that didn't, and it wasn't the players' fault, but the last coaching staff, the Lincoln Riley regime, they didn't know how to spell defense. They also took Caleb Williams. You had several wide receivers leave. OU, Brent Venables, for his first time as a head coach, has done a great job at trying to fix what was there and turning it around. So I don't know either, Adam. I don't know how good OU will be. I think they have one of the highest, like the ceiling is this and the floor is this. I think they have one of the biggest disparities. But what I can say is I'm willing to give Brent the benefit of the doubt because he inherited a team that was coached by a regime that didn't know how to spell defense and took Caleb Williams. And remember, when Texas played OU, Brent Venables' first year, they ran Wildcat because Dylan Gabriel got a concussion against TCU the week before. They didn't have a quarterback. So he's done a lot of good work. I'm willing to give OU, if OU comes in the SEC and takes some lumps year one, you're not going to hear me pile on. Because, like, listen, to even get them where they are, Brent Venables has put in work. Real good work. So OU, to me, gets a bit of a benefit of the doubt. New coach. He's a new head coach. Yeah, Greg, I agree with you. He's a new head coach. And as a new head coach, I think he's done pretty darn good. I got to see it from Ole Miss. Adam Lamparello, do you think that the DeBoer UW team that beat Oregon twice last year in Texas in the semi and went to the 90 looked like a Brady bunch? No, they were very good. They were a very good team. Very well coached, too. And one thing I will say, Adam, is I know that you were like the players like him. There are certain times, right? Because you're right. You don't want to be everybody's best friend. But just because the players like you doesn't mean that you aren't a solid coach. We've seen multiple coaches. Andy Reid, for instance, right? Andy Reid, for instance, is a great example of a coach that the players love, but he's able to get the most out of his talent because of the way he goes about his business. And I think DeBoer is very analogous in that. Like the play, and I get it, Adam. I think it concerns you because it's such an opposite end of the spectrum. But here's what I wouldn't let it concern you until it needs to be concerning. You get what I mean? Because all he's done is win. Everywhere he's gone, all he's done is win. So don't let it concern you until it gets concerning. Yeah, accountability takes multiple different forms. And listening to Rome Odunze talk about him, that was very, very eye-opening. I'll tell you what else was eye-opening, Adam. You have Michael Penix, who has on multiple occasions, whenever they interview him, recruited for Bama, saying like, hey, Of course you should go to Bama. Look at what Kalen DeBoer does. He's a fantastic coach. He's doing all this. Like that says a lot to me because Michael Penix could just be like, oh yeah, go to UW. We're going to really miss Kalen DeBoer. He was a great guy, but UW made the right hire. He hasn't said, as far as I've seen, he hasn't said that. He's been like, nah, go to Bama. Go to Bama with DeBoer. Right. He's not he's not going. Yeah, I love that he's not going to change his personality. I love that. I would be really concerned if he tried to be Nick Saban at Alabama. That's where I would be like, oh boy, this is going to be bad. This is going to be real bad. Be you, because you're not going to be Saban. There's only one Saban. I mean, so many assistant coaches have left Alabama and tried to be Saban because they're like, oh, well, this is what works. But it works because Saban is authentic. Saban understands who he is and is able to maximize that. And I do agree with you, Kelly. Alabama, I mean, the year before last, I can't tell you how many times I would just sink my hands or my head into my hands watching Alabama play, not this past year, but the year before, with all the penalties. Oh my word. I would just sit there and just pull my hair out. Like, what is happening? Why is this still a thing 8 games into the season? Oklahoma has got a really rough conference schedule. I think Florida's got the toughest schedule, and then I think Oklahoma probably has the toughest, second toughest schedule within the SEC. We don't have time for the 100%, Greg. 100%. I could see Oklahoma. I think that's very realistic. I think 9-3 is realistic for Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma has a lot of realistic. I think that they could. It all just depends on that offensive line, the tight end room, and how much that defense has improved. But I think 8-4. Like if Oklahoma goes 8-4 year one, that's going to be fine. With the schedule they have still in a building phase, that's going to be fine. Ty, 2008 Saban would have benched all of his starters. The penalties killed me. They absolutely killed me. I would rather be an inmate at Alcatraz than the head coach at Florida. Hey, like Coach Sean was saying last night, if that guy wins, if that guy goes to a bowl game, I've said it, they need to build him a statue. Like he needs a statue in front of that stadium if he makes a bowl game because it is tough. It's tough. And I like Napier. I'm going to be honest with you. I know that's not a popular, I want him to do well, but boy, oh boy, that's a tough schedule. DeBoer has always said he runs player-led teams, that the players want the music and it helps them enjoy practice. Yeah, it's all about like, there's a line, right? There's a line. And here's a great example. Here's a great example of this. My parents were very relaxed in terms of like, they let me have a lot of freedom, but they didn't go over the line to where it was like they were trying to be my best friend. If I did something wrong, right, there was accountability. There was that. But I always liken it to parenting, right, where it's just like there's not one right answer for parenting. My parents were very relaxed with me. I had a lot of freedom. Now, granted, I grew up in the country on a ranch, so like I had a lot of freedom. If I woke up in the morning, I fed the horses, I cleaned the stalls, I made sure the fences were all good, I made sure all the stays on the fences were all good. If I got all that done by 10, I could tell my dad, like, hey, if do you need anything else from me? And if he said no, I could tell him, okay, well, I'm going to so-and-so's house. I'll be back in the morning. And he would say, okay. So it was one of those, right? Like where I still had accountability. It's not like I had the parents that were so relaxed that they tried to be my best friend, but it was one of those things where they gave me a lot of freedom. Yeah, but I think a lot of these guys are self-motivated, Adam. I'm not saying all of them are, but I think if you're coming to Alabama, you have to have a certain level of self-motivation. No. I don't think they will. I don't think they will. Roll Tide, Patty. And maybe they will. I don't know. Let me check out their schedule. But they have to replace their quarterback, who was unbelievable last year. Their defense was pretty darn good last year, and I think that their defense will probably be pretty darn good this year. But I think that their offense is going to take a serious step back. Plus, one of the wide receivers they were just looking forward to, Hill, he just got hurt. And that sucks because I was really looking forward to him. I believe it's Destin Hill. Ooh, boy, this is a pretty lax schedule, isn't it? They got Georgia Tech, Boston College, Memphis, Cal, SMU, Clemson. That's a game. Duke, Miami. I'm interested in Miami now. UNC. Ooh, boy, this is a pretty lax schedule. I think Florida's going to really want that get back because we got to remember Florida didn't have Graham Mertz last year when they played Florida State, did they? Graham Mertz was hurt. So with Graham Mertz, I think that that's a winnable game for Florida. Mertz, hey, I'm not going to lie, y'all. I was clowning. SMU is not a pushover, no. But I was clowning. I got a really good friend. He's a great content creator, High Top Sports. He's a great content creator. Love that guy. But I was clowning him before the season, like just kind of giving him a hard time. Not clowning him, but I was just giving him a hard time before the season. I was like, oh, y'all got Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz was really darn solid for Florida. Like Graham Mertz was not the issue with Florida at all. I mean, he was a pretty darn good football player for them. I thought he was going to be like, I did not think it was going to go half as well as it did. And yes, Patty, DJ Uongalele transferred there. But they still have to replace those two outside wide receivers they have, right? Like that Florida State offense, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I started questioning Florida State in about week 3 because I started noticing your offense looks like whenever you play your little brother in Madden and he gets a team that has a lot of fast wide receivers and they just call go routes the entire time. Just go, just go, just go. It didn't look like it was like a lot of principled offense there. It just looked like it was a feast or famine type offense. And it worked because they had the wide receivers to do it. I don't know that they have the wide receivers to be a feast or famine type offense this year. I don't know. Now, maybe they do. Maybe I'll eat my words. DJ was ranked above. Yeah, they both played in that Trinity League. So depending on where you looked, Bryce was ahead or DJ was ahead. But they both played in that Trinity League out there at in California. St. John Bosco, Mater Dei. I mean, that league is incredible. Yeah, I don't think DJ's a bad quarterback, Kelly. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I think that there's a lot of worse options out there. I think that they did good getting DJ Uongale, but I question their offensive schematics and I question their wide receiver room. If they don't have the wide receivers to be a deep threat offense all the time, I don't know. And one of their most explosive wide receivers just went down. Yeah, and he was huge, right? Like he was a Mack truck. I'm 26 and struggling too. There's remedies just stupid expensive and exclusive to get a hold of. I think I missed something. I'm struggling to run a mile. Yeah, if y'all see me running ever, run with me because something's chasing me, okay? And I will trip you. All right? Understand that. We're talking about aging, Ty. I get it. I get it. I'm already going gray. Thoughts on Alabama this season? Bama Production says. First off, Bama, thank you for being in here. Love the picture of Ryan Williams right there. Can't wait for Ryan Williams to get on campus. What a talent he is. I think Alabama's in a good place this season, Bama Productions. If you're just coming in here, we were talking about the preseason list done by 24/7 Sports and whether or not I agreed with it, and I disagree with it. And Bama, here's a question for you, Bama Productions, because maybe, and this isn't a question where it's loaded, right? I'm not asking you this as if I know the answer. I have my opinion, but I am trying for the life of me to figure this out. Why in the world is LSU ahead of Bama? I don't get that one. Their defense was not good. They have to replace the Heisman Trophy winner. They have to replace their 2 wide receivers, and I get it. The wide receiver is probably the one thing for LSU I'm not concerned about. They still have Kyron Lacey. They got Anderson. They got wide receivers. They got that. But you got to be able to have an offense that can take advantage. I just don't understand. And I'm not Bama Productions. I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. I'm asking you that just because I've asked chat that and everybody, like, we can't figure out a reason. And so I'm just looking for anybody that can maybe be like, oh, well, because of this right here. And that light bulb will go off in my head and I'll be like, oh, stupid Ty. How could I have forgotten? I don't get it. Speaking of Ryan Williams, he's obviously still just 17 and will be the entire season, but don't you think he needs, I think he needs to add a little bit of weight, but I also think that Alabama's strength and conditioning room is fantastic. And I think that he can probably put on 5 to 10 pounds, right? They'll probably have him doing stuff this summer. Eat your peanut butter sandwiches, Ryan. Stock up on that peanut butter. You need to be eating peanut butter sandwiches every time we see you, just popping one out. Y'all think I'm playing. I had a friend that was on his way to college football. In his senior year, he'd open up his backpack and there'd be like 50 peanut butter sandwiches, and all day long, just peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter sandwich, peanut butter sandwich, and just constant in the weight room. Isn't he on campus in a couple weeks for the summer? Yeah, David. And if I'm not mistaken, the coaching staff will give him like a workout schedule of things they would like the players to do. I don't know if they do that anymore. I know in high school they did that, where it's like at the end of the year, we were given like, hey, you know, we'd love you to do this. You don't have to, but we'd certainly love it. So I think that he can add about 5 to 7 pounds before the season. And I think you could play him at slot and have him absolutely be a terror. I mean, you think about this right here. If you go 4 wide, you could have Jeremy Bernard, you could have Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, Ryan Williams. They have to replace a lot. So do we. We have Milroe coming back. I 100% agree. Their defense was dog water. And as I say that, it's water that I wouldn't have even given to my dog. Granted, Bama, my dog is a bit of a princess, right? People in the undefeated know my dog, Maya, she's a little bit of a princess. She doesn't go outside if it's raining. I have to stand next to her. If she's going to go outside and it's raining, I have to be out there. So that's not the best analogy, but you're 100% right, man. You're 100% right. I cannot for the life of me. And like I said, I wasn't meaning to put you on the spot. That was not my intention. I'm just looking for anybody to give me some sort of reason as to why. Someone gave me a good reason. And they said, because Brian Kelly. And I was like, fair. Brian Kelly, listen, I kind of make jokes about Brian Kelly. But if we're being honest, if we're being objective, Brian Kelly's a good coach. But if he's getting credit for making a national championship, well, damn it, Kalen DeBoer just made a national championship. Kalen DeBoer inherited a 4-8 program, took them 11-2, then made a national championship after that, and then was at Sioux Falls killing it. So, like, if Brian Kelly gets that love, then so should Kalen DeBoer, and Bama returns Jalen Milroe. Bama returns their defensive line, which I think is going to be really darn good, especially Tim Keenan, Jaheim Otis, now that Jaheim Otis is back at his natural position. And this is kind of going back to answering your question, Bama Productions. I apologize. One thing you'll learn about me, my man, is I'm a squirrel. I'm like a goldfish. I see people in the comments and I love interacting with the viewers. So I'll just like start jumping around, but I will always come back and I will always attempt to answer your questions. Thoughts on Alabama? So continuing on with the conversation. Yeah, you got to replace I completely agree with you, Bama. DeBoer is the best coach in college football besides Kirby Smart. Kirby's the only coach in college football I'd put above DeBoer. I'd put DeBoer second, and then I'd probably put Sark third. But DeBoer, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. I 1,000,000% agree with you. So going back to this, I think Jaheim Otis and Tim Keenan on the interior is going to be nasty. Jaheim Otis is going back to more of his natural position. Remember last year, they were almost asking him to be a really versatile piece on the defensive front, kind of move around a bit. And that's great. I love that he has versatility. It's going to help like your recognition and understanding of the game. But at the end of the day, Tim Keenan and Jaheim Otis, if they're both healthy, that's going to be a wrecking ball on the interior. Now, in terms of edge rusher, you have Cott, you have Quindarius Robinson, You have Quay Russaw. You have Yanze Pierre. I think they are going to be a quarterback's nightmare. And then on the other side, you have Jamarian Latham. You've got LT Overton. You've got Jordan Renaud. And lest we forget on the interior, I just talked about Tim Keenan. I just talked about Jaheim Otis. I think whenever they are next to each other, they are going to be fantastic. Lance says Sark one quality win in a decade. But here's the thing I will say about Sark, Lance, is since he's gotten to Texas, he has really made a difference there. Like, he's really made a difference there. He turned around a program that was not doing well. I mean, Texas had, I forget how long it was, but Texas had this incredible string of not sending people to the first round of the NFL draft. And like, Sark has done a really good job at turning it around, at developing their players. The biggest issue Texas had was lack of a culture and development. He's done a good job at implementing both. And so, yes, there's a reason why I'd probably put DeBoer over him, because DeBoer made a national championship in year 2, beating Sark to get there. But I am a big, but Lance, like I said, loss to OU is kind of a caveat, because it's a rivalry that rivals whenever Alabama goes in Jordan Hare. That to me isn't necessarily what I would use as like some major detrimental thing. I don't know that I would use that, just because that game, it's one of those rivalry games where all conventional wisdom goes out. Now, the struggle wins versus Houston and K-State, very fair. Very fair. I think that we can have a conversation there, but I think no doubt about it, Lance. I think you have me on the Houston and K-State, but I don't know that OU is the point I would personally use if I was arguing against Sark, just because of the rivalry implications of that game. But you certainly, I concede on Houston and K-State. But I also think, Lance, it's like he's turned the program around, and maybe I'm wrong there. I'll certainly eat crow if I'm wrong. I'll completely concede if I'm wrong. I'm excited about the way he has them trending. Breakout wide receiver. I can't find which wide receiver will break out. I think Jeremy Bernard. He understands the offense. I think he's got a deep threat. I think that's the easiest answer. But I also think someone like a Kobe Prentice could be destined to just do big things in this offense. I think a Kendrick Law is going to be another guy that you need to watch. And the only reason Kendrick Law wasn't named 1 or 2 out of my mouth is because I think they're going to use Kendrick Law everywhere, which is going to be interesting to see. Right. But I think they're going to look to get him involved in all aspects of the game because of his versatility. 100% JT. His production is going to triple. I hope it's even anywhere similar to that Bama Productions. So looking at the defensive interior, I think quite a bit, man. I think quite a bit. Sark has sat down in interviews and talked about how much he respects Saban, and how Saban is the only reason as to where he is. Like, Sark has given Saban all the love. I'd imagine that, like, he called Saban frequently. Now, Lance, I'll tell you the argument. If I was you and I was trying to argue against Sark, I'll tell you the argument I would be making, my man. Sark has not had to deal with major staff turnover yet. He lost Bo Davis. He doesn't have Bo Davis there anymore. They've had some staff turnover there now. In my opinion, his best assistant coach is no longer there. What does that look like? Especially after losing those 2 monsters on the interior of that Texas defensive line. That's the argument I would be hitting. I think you're very well placed, Lance, in your Houston and K-State. We disagree slightly on the OU one, just because I think it's one of those rivalry games, right? I'd say the same thing if someone was like, oh, well, you lost to Auburn and Jordan Hare. And I'd be like, yeah, but like, that's not, that's like, freaky things happen in that game. I don't necessarily know that that's indicative of being the best team. I just think that game, all logic escapes. But you've got me on Houston. You've got me on K-State. I absolutely concede those. But the point, Lance, if I was using to argue against Sark, I would talk about how he hasn't had to deal with major staff turnover yet, and he just lost one of the best position coaches in the nation, Bo Davis. Bo Davis now at LSU. That's the argument I would probably be hitting home, especially after they lost those two guys on the interior. I think that's the argument that'll be a winning argument for you, man. I see this preseason top 5 as someone's wish list. Truth is, everyone's going to be hanging on to the edge of their seats, not 100%. I think you're 1,000% well placed in that, Southern Red. I think you're 1,000% well placed in that. Now, I don't know who said it, but I did see a comment earlier trying to explain LSU, and I think you're well placed in putting this comment. Someone asked, is it because Bama plays LSU at home? If we were just talking about it being against Alabama, I could maybe grant you that. I would still disagree, but I would be like, fair. Death Valley, even though Bama has a lot of success in Death Valley is still one of the best places for a home game, right? Like if you're LSU, you've got an unbelievable environment. But this is LSU at length. Will Bama go 12-0? I would say probably not, Bama Productions, and I really hope they do. But I also think that we need to understand that DeBoer also needs time to grow. He's still very young in his Power 5 coaching career. This is going to be year 3 of him being a Power 5 head coach. He's still in the infancy of Power 5 head coaching. That being said, he inherited a program that went 4-8, went 11-2, then went 12-1 to the national championship game, only lost to Michigan, who eventually won the national championship in that game. It goes without saying. So I would say probably not 12-0. I think that having Georgia early is tough. And there's still questions on Alabama's roster. And Bama, understand this about me. When I say questions, I literally mean questions. I know that there's this tendency in sports media that when someone's like, oh, well, I have questions about this, they really mean they have concerns, right? Like there's this conflation of concerns and questions. When I tell you I have questions, I have questions. If I have a concern, I'll tell you. I don't necessarily have concerns. The closest I have is offensive line, and that's just because I know they're talented. I think Alabama's got the best guard duo in college football. I do. But that offensive line was awful last year. It was awful. I am confusion. He grew quickly at Washington, went 11-2. Yep, 100%. I keep saying 12-1 as if I'm not counting the championship game and then the playoff win. But 14-1. You're 100% right, Bama. That's 1,000% on me. So you're right. You're right. I think that there are high expectations for him, but I would always be like, hey, it's year 1. It's year 3 for him being a Power 5 head coach in general. It's year 1 in the SEC. It's year 1 at Alabama. Alabama's got some difficult games on this schedule. I think 10-2. I think 10-2. I certainly think 11-1 is possible. I certainly think so. But 10-2 in year 1 after having lost all the secondary pieces, oh my God, watch out, SEC. If he goes 10-2 year 1, I'm going to be a problem. I'm going to be real mouthy on this, Mike, if he goes 10-2 year 1. You're going to see Blaze for like 5 weeks straight if he goes 10-2. For those of you who haven't met Blaze yet, consider yourselves lucky. Consider yourselves lucky that you haven't met Blaze. Texas conference schedule doesn't look that tough to me. Of course, Georgia and Oklahoma, but after that, yeah, I agree with you, man. I agree with you, Hacker. They have a favorable schedule. They play Michigan at Michigan, but am I wrong for saying that doesn't move me? Right? Like Michigan lost everything. Michigan lost everything. Well, not everything, but you get what I mean when I say everything, right? Like I'm not being 100% literal there. I mean, they lost a lot. Let me be more poignant. They lost a lot. 10-2 would be outstanding. I think 10-2 is very feasible. I think it's very realistic. It's a young team in a lot of aspects. Okay, so Hacker, you're probably a little bit more on you view this a little bit different than me. I agree Michigan is a legit game, but do I think that it's a concerning game? I don't think it is this year. I don't know. Interested. They still have a good defense. They have a very good defense, Hacker. If we lose, it will only be to Georgia, in my opinion, because once we play Tennessee, we're already going to play a similar offense like them. Yeah, USF. USF runs that same veer and shoot concept that does Heupel. And so I really like that. I really like that's something Coach Sean and I, Bama Productions, have talked about a lot, is that we love that we get USF early because that veer and shoot concept that they run at USF is going to be great learning for the young guys on this defense. It's going to be a great learning experience. That veer and shoot offense is a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun, especially if executed well, especially if you have a quarterback that can make it tick. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. I very much will enjoy it. They lost including any dignity and self-respect. Jimmy, you make me laugh, man. You make me laugh. So how do I view Bama this year? Kind of circling back to that original question, Bama Productions. I think that they're going to be very good. My biggest question is offensive line, not the talent on the offensive line, but I really hope Coach Cap positively affects the offensive line. Over the 3 previous years, Bama Productions, and this is an interesting stat, right? This is an interesting stat. So Alabama was 129th in the nation last year in terms of sacks allowed, and we think like, oh, that's awful. But if I average what they've been since 2020, so not 2020, but 2021, 2022, and 2023, if I average where their offensive line has ranked, it's 99th in the nation in terms of sacks allowed. That's not good enough. This is Alabama. That's not good enough. You shouldn't be 99th in the nation in anything. Anything. That's not good enough. Now, we have the talent. We have the talent. We have the talent on the offensive line. Bama Hater says Bama Productions, hell no, Bama ain't going 12 and I think 10-2 is very feasible, Bama Hater. I think 10-2 is very feasible. Because when you look at the schedule, Bama Hater, you got to acknowledge like Georgia is the team that's probably the one with the least questions, right? Georgia's the team that's probably the most principled coming in. But then you look at LSU. LSU has to completely refigure out a defense that was awful last year. They have to replace the Heisman Trophy winner. And the Heisman Trophy winner, it's easy just to say that and not go into the nuance of it. Part of what made him so special was utilizing his legs to spring open the pass. Right? I mean, that guy was incredible. They got to replace their wide receivers, though I always say the wide receivers that LSU has, they're always going to have good wide receivers. But that defense was terrible. And they didn't exactly get a bunch of interior defensive linemen that make you shake you in your boots. So, yeah, they made great hires. I love Corey Raymond. I love that they bring him back. I love the Bo Davis hire. Bo Davis is one of the best coaches in the nation. But that's not going to do it. So I guess outside of, I think you'd say Georgia, who's the other team, Bama Hater? Because it's very easy to just say this, but we like principled discussion here. We like principled discussion here. So I'd love to have the debate with you, my man. It's all love. It's all love. All good to have difference of opinions, but I want to know why you have the opinion you have, right? I need to know why you have the opinion you have. What reasoning, what logic, what's the reason that you hold this view? What do you mean? A 2-loss spot? Bama Hater, there's a 12-team playoff. What the heck are you talking about, my man? You must have forgotten that there was a 12-team playoff because the conference championship gets automatic admission. And then if you have a 2-loss team outside of that, of course they'll get into the college football playoffs. It's a 12-team playoff. And I get it. There's a lot happening. So if you forgot that there was if you forgot that the playoff had expanded, but I get it, right? Hey, let's keep it civil, guys. Let's keep it civil. It's all love. Like, we can have differences of opinions. That's what makes the world go round. No great decision ever came because everybody agreed. There was somebody in there that disagreed, and then they came to a resolve. So let's keep it 100% civil. It's all love. But Bama hater, a 2-loss team will absolutely make the college football playoffs. That I don't think is in the question. It's a 12-team playoff. That's not the question. So, like, when you look at this Bama hater, what are the teams that you feel like stand out in a position to right now where you're like, okay, Bama's going to easily lose to that team? If you say Georgia, I think you've got a principled argument there. Georgia's Georgia. They're a really good team. Now, Alabama has been their boogeyman, but I will be like, okay, if we want to have that conversation about Georgia, that's a reasonable conversation to have. That's a reasonable conversation to have. We got Proctor, Brailsford, Booker, and Roberts. I think that interior will be very good. I think it could be very good, and I certainly hope so. Bama Productions and getting Caden Proctor back, I think, will be big. There can't be, yeah. And plus, I think the SEC is almost going to cannibalize itself this year. Like, I think the SEC is going to be really tough this year. I think a lot of teams are going to take some L's. I think they're going to take some lumps. I think there will be multiple 2-3 loss teams. Like, I just think that and a new offensive line coach. Yeah, Coach Cap. Coach Cap, love that addition. Hopefully it pays off, but I do agree, Bama Productions. In terms of, if we're talking interior, Parker Brailsford was the highest graded returning center in the nation. Then you have Booker and Roberts. Booker is unbelievable. Like, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I tweeted the other day a clip. It was like a 1-minute clip of Tyler Booker blocking. And the first clip, he handles his guy, right? Handles the assignment he has. Caden Proctor is kind of just struggling, and then he goes over there and boom, hits him. It's just my opinion, which is all fair. Texas and Georgia will dominate the SEC for years to come, but Bama hater, Alabama just got the coach that beat Texas, has beat him twice with less talent than is currently on Alabama. Do you agree a 2-3 loss non-SEC champion should get a 2-loss non-SEC champion will absolutely get it into the playoffs, Bama hater? I really think you forgot that the college football playoff expanded. You've lost sound. Have I lost sound? Can y'all still hear me? Roberts is great too, no doubt about it. But Booker, there's a clip on my Twitter that I retweeted, and it's unbelievable how he handles a Texas A&M assignment. But Bama hater, I'm not trying to be harsh. I genuinely think you forgot that the college football playoff expanded. Jimmy, let's keep it civil, man. It's all good. It's all good. And I hear you. Texas has done good work, Bama hater, but Kalen DeBoer just beat Sark twice. He's beat him twice. And now he's got access to Alabama talent. And yes, Washington had some very talented pieces on that team. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's like he's got exponentially more talent at Alabama. I'll put it like this, Bama hater. I don't think that Washington had 3 5-stars on that roster. He has 3 5-star true freshman corners. 3 5-star true freshman corners. So in just one room, there's an exponential amount of talent. But of course, a 2-loss team can make the college football playoffs. It's a 12-team playoff. There's 4 conferences right now. Oh, you're good, Jimmy. You're good. You make me laugh. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They absolutely earned it last year, Bama hater. They won the SEC. What do you mean they didn't earn it? You're moving the goalposts, Bama hater. And listen, I did debate on a national level, right? In high school, I did CX debate. I actually made the team because I had a bunch of surgeries and I couldn't play football. I couldn't play sports anymore because I had all these surgeries. And so I was bored. And so I made the CX team. We didn't have a coach. I coached it. I coached us to nationals. My senior year, we went to nationals. It was actually in Birmingham, Alabama. And then behind me, you'll see like I've got glass trophy there. I got all these gavels. These are only like a bit of the gavels I have. Those are from moot court. Went to nationals in moot court both my junior and senior year, placed within the top 10. So I do debate, right? I do debate. And you're moving the goalposts. First, you said that a non-SEC champion doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs. Now you're saying Alabama didn't deserve to be in the playoffs because they were an SEC champion last year. Mind you, Bama hater, that the College Football Playoff Committee had written into their rules and legislation from the inception of the college football playoffs that if you had an injury that was massively detrimental to your team, that they would use that as a criteria to make a playoff decision. Well, then I can't help you there, Bama hater. If your sound is off, I can't help you. So already Florida State, Florida State went undefeated, but was that the same Florida State team that went undefeated? No. They scraped by Louisville, who Kentucky blasted. Bama blasted Kentucky. Bama beat Georgia, and remember, Bama left a lot of meat on the bone against Georgia. Bama should have beaten Georgia by a lot more. There were 4 interceptions that Bama should have had that would have absolutely made that game a totally different thing. Yeah, it's you've got multiple so I don't understand. Bama hater, you've moved the goalpost and you've modified your argument to try and make it applicable to Alabama. But when you're doing debate, when you're doing argumentation, logical consistency is key. So you have to maintain that logical consistency. So if it's a non-SEC champ that won't make it, then doesn't it stand to reason? Because you're championing the SEC champion argument as a reason why Alabama won't make the college football playoffs. Yet you're saying they are undeserving when they were the SEC championship. So that right there, your logic falls in on itself. Either the SEC championship is all being or it's not. Right? And the college football playoffs has had since their inception about the injury rule. And if you're telling me, oh, well, nobody else had their starting quarterback go down to injury like FSU did, that fundamentally broke them. Instead of being punished. Bama hater, they beat Florida with Florida's second or third string quarterback, and anybody who's objective watching that game was terrible. If you're telling me that you think Florida State with their backup quarterback, mind you, let's be very honest about Florida State's quarterback situation. Mike Norvell went in front of TV and told everybody how we have a backup quarterback that what's the argument here? Tyler Bright. Bros used the name Bama. Who's your favorite team? Miami. Oh, well, he's still mad that Miami got absolutely skull dragged the last time they played. My brother in Christ, you need to worry about filling up a stadium or getting a stadium. Your team, I get what's happening here. He's mad that Mario Cristobal has lost 2 games in his career from maybe kneeling the ball and taking it. But if we're being honest here, right? If we're being honest here, Bama hater, Mike Norvell told on himself this offseason. Let's understand something. Mike Norvell told everybody, hey, this backup quarterback we had, absolutely he can take us to the college football playoffs. Absolutely we can still compete. If he believed in the backup quarterback that much, then how come he had to go to the transfer portal and get a different quarterback? If he really believed that the backup quarterback was that dude, how come that backup quarterback isn't on roster? How come he had to go get DJU? Yeah, but it's a different thing to do it like the way that Mario Cristobal did it, right? So that in and of itself, Mike Norvell told everybody that he was just politicking for his team. And I get it. Politic for your team all you want, but you're not going to fool me. If your backup quarterback was good enough to compete for a national championship, that's what you said. That's what you were politicking, Mike Norvell. Then why did you go get a journeyman quarterback in DJU? That doesn't make any sense. That fundamentally falls in on itself. That legislation has been in the college football playoff parameters since the inception of the College Football Playoff Committee in 2013. That's not new. It's just we have not had an instance where a team had such a key person get injured, like the quarterback, since this happened. So, you said that not winning the SEC is going to keep Alabama out of the playoffs, but then they won the SEC, and you're saying that they shouldn't have been in the playoffs. So that argument kind of defeats itself before I even have to touch it. But yeah, 100% Bama hater. A 2-team loss, 1,000% gets in the college football playoff. Heck, maybe even a 3-team. A team with 3 losses could get in. 12-team playoff. Well, Bama hater, I asked you the teams that you thought would beat Alabama, and you're not talking football. You're just recycling the same argument. I have no sword, my brother. I'm trying to talk football, and I'm not getting a response. I'm getting the same question. What's Bama's record versus Tennessee, Georgia, Oklahoma, Missouri, Auburn, Wisconsin, and LSU? I say 4-3. Who are the 3 losses? Who are the 3 losses? I'm very interested in that. Because if you're saying, oh, Georgia, okay, I think that there's a discussion to be had there. I think there's a discussion to be had. I don't think Wisconsin is going to beat Alabama, right? In order to beat Alabama, I think you need to be able to test them vertically. I don't know that they can. Tennessee has to replace a quarterback. They've got to figure out their wide receiver situation, and they run that veer and shoot, which is a very good offense. And it's in Neyland. That's going to be a tough game. I grant you that one. Tennessee's going to be a tough game. I would still favor Alabama in that game, but it's going to be tough. Oklahoma is going to be a tough game. If Oklahoma figures out their offensive line, then they're going to be a tough out. But we have to remember, Oklahoma is replacing all their offensive linemen, and they really needed a blocking tight end. They thought they got it, and I don't think they got it the way that they thought they had originally got it in terms of a blocking tight end. Now, hopefully, their offensive line develops under Bill Bedenbaugh. And listen, I have no reason to doubt Bill Bedenbaugh. I think he might be the best offensive line coach in all of college football. But they have to replace all 5 offensive linemen. They also are going to be starting a quarterback that hasn't played before in Jackson Arnold. And listen, Jackson Arnold's going to be very good. I think he's going to be very good. That wide receiver room is very good for Oklahoma. That wide receiver room is very, very good for Oklahoma. I grant you that. LSU. LSU had one of the worst defenses in the nation last year. They didn't get anything to really help their interior defensive line at the rate that they really needed to. They did make great hires, but are those great hires going to make a day one difference? Maybe, but we need to see them have the access to the talent. I don't know that they have the talent on the interior. Alabama returns a lot of their offensive line pieces, and the one area that was the weakest on Alabama's offensive line, center, they get the number 1 rated center returning in 2024, Parker Brailsford. So that should be a massive help. Caden Proctor's cutting down some weight. That should be a massive help, especially when his biggest struggle was a speed rush. Him cutting down 10, 15 pounds is going to be massive there. So LSU has to replace their Heisman winning quarterback that was unbelievable in the deep shot. The only quarterback in the nation that could beat Jalen Milroe in deep ball accuracy. It was Jaden Daniels and then Jalen Milroe. Jaden Daniels and Jalen Milroe were the best 2 in the nation by a wide margin on the deep shot. Jaden Daniels isn't there anymore. And while I do like Nussmeier, Bama hater, Nussmeier doesn't have the mobility that Jaden Daniels did, and that was a big reason why LSU's offense found so much success. They also have to replace Malik Neighbors. They have to replace Brian Thomas, though, as I always say, it's LSU. They're going to have great pieces at wide receiver. I'm not worried about that. So we've gone through Tennessee, we've gone through Georgia, we've gone through Oklahoma, we've gone through LSU. LSU I'm not really worried about. They have to replace a whole lot. Auburn, we've gone through Wisconsin as well. Auburn plays Alabama in Bryant-Denny. That should be a much bigger help. If I was looking, if they don't get the quarterback situation figured out, they can have all the talent in the world they want it. They can have all the talent in the world. They can have all the talent in the world. But if they don't get the quarterback situation, well, Bama, you're debating me. I haven't name called you at all. Don't worry about them. You're not debating chat. You're debating me. And you've yet to answer any of my arguments. Don't worry about chat. You're debating me. And we're on Auburn. Auburn, if they continue with Peyton Thorne, if they don't get him enough help, if they don't have enough resources, I don't know that Peyton Thorne is going to be a guy, and it's in Tuscaloosa, plus it's at the end of the year. Missouri's a tough game, but my biggest question to you, no, Jimmy, no, you don't, man, but I love that you asked for permission, Jimmy. That cracks me up something ferocious. That cracks me up something ferocious, but nah, man. Nah. Listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but don't worry about everybody in chat, Bama hater. You're debating me. All right? You're debating me. Missouri is going to be a good team, Bama hater, no doubt about it. I think Missouri is going to be a real good team. They return Luther Burden. They return Brady Cook. I think those two right there have an unbelievable connection. I think that Luther Burden might be the best wide receiver preseason, at least in the SEC. He's great. Really wish we would have gotten him at Alabama, but listen, good for Missouri. Hats off to them. But I guess my question for you, Bama hater, on Missouri is, how do you replace Cody Schrader? Cody Schrader was such an important cogwheel to that offense. Run the Table Sports, my man. Happy you're in here. Patriot Life, as always. Love that y'all are in here. Run the Table Sports, my man. Love talking to you yesterday on Twitter about Travis Hunter and what an incredible talent he is. What an incredible talent he is. I could watch him play forever. This show feels so repetitive. I'm not sure how, Jay. Someone's asking a question in chat and I'm answering that. But listen, to each their own, my man. To each their own. I appreciate you being here. Preseason top 5. I'd have to look around the nation right now. I think preseason top 5, I'd probably have Ohio State, Georgia. Let me see, Texas. I'd probably put Bama at 5. I just don't know who I would put at 4. Yeah, that's what a live show is, my man. We're here to discuss. We're here to discuss Bama football. And if someone's questioning Bama football, why wouldn't I give them context? Right? Like I'm arguing for Alabama, giving reasons why I think they're going to succeed on an Alabama podcast against someone who doesn't think they're going to succeed. No, I'll certainly stop here in a bit. Don't get me wrong, but that just kind of seems to be the nature of the show. So out of all those games, you haven't answered any of my questions, Bama hater. I gave you questions about every team not named Georgia. You haven't answered one, my man. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I know we were talking about the preseason rankings, but I had to ask you about DaShawn Lee. Is that guy? Yeah, that guy is unbelievable, man. That guy is unbelievable. I saw where On3 had put a prediction for Alabama. We'll see. I really hope Alabama gets him. But I mean, he's going to be a really great prospect, man. I think he's a true difference maker. The staff has a pre-existing relationship with him. The staff has a lot of ties out to the West Coast. So I think recruiting on the West Coast, I think you'll be fine there. And he's got a relationship with Damani Jackson. And I really hope that helps. Now, that being said, He also has a relationship with the cornerback coach that just went from USC to Georgia. Well, Bama, in a debate, before you get to ask another question, you have to answer the questions I posed. I answered all of your questions, and now you have to. In a debate, now I have cleaned the board of your arguments. I have presented counter arguments, and now you must answer those before asking another question. We're doing this like CX, my brother. You got to answer those before you give me new things. Do you think Caleb Odoms gets a lot of touches this season? I think he does. I think he's going to be a really, really tough piece to stop in the red zone. And a quote that I love that Nick Saban had is create value for yourself. I think Caleb Odom is going to be able to create value for himself in the red zone. And once you create value for yourself, you're very hard to take off the field. But Jay DeGoat, I do apologize if you feel like I'm answering the trolls too much. That's not my intention. But in fairness, Jay DeGoat, it came in the part where we were talking about Alabama's outlook for the 2024 season. So it was kind of topical. But I do apologize if you feel like I'm running in circles. If somebody disagrees, I want to let them have their say. And I want to give them the reason why I believe that they are incorrect. And in doing so, I'm staying to the topic of Alabama's 2024 season outlook and whether or not Alabama can make the college football playoffs, whether or not they can go 10-2, things like that. But I certainly do apologize if it feels like I'm running in a circle. That's certainly not my intention. But the only reason I stayed with it was because it was the topic we were on. But yeah, Tyler Bright, I think when you create value for yourself, it's very hard. Very hard to be taken off the field. Especially in situations where it's like, okay, when you get down into the red zone, and I have the same argument, Tyler, about Daniel Hill as well. When you get down into the red zone, you're now in a position to where Daniel Hill and Caleb Odom are going to create value for themselves because Daniel Hill's a wrecking ball, and Caleb Odom you can't teach 6'5" and the vertical ability he has. You haven't answered my question yet, Bama hater. Once again, in a debate, you don't get to pose new questions until you answer the counter arguments I have. Now, don't get me wrong, Bama hater. I'll certainly answer your questions once you answer the counter arguments that I have posed. Jimmy Lee Baker says, Ty, what do you think the offense will be like regarding the intermediate passing game? Didn't see much of it from Milroe last year and saw a ton of it from UW. So I think that's going to absolutely be an area where Alabama's offense improves. Ephraim, it's Miami. He's a Miami fan. But I think, Jimmy, that the intermediate passing game for Alabama will absolutely improve. I think that one thing I talk about all the time is I always bring up Sark and Texas, where when you look at how whenever Texas played Alabama, Sark schemed and absolutely attacked some of our younger guys, right? Like Caleb Downs is sensational, but Sark schemed him up and attacked him. We didn't have that last year. Like Tommy Rees wasn't out there scheming things up. Now, the reason why I bring that up, Jimmy Lee Baker, is because DeBoer is going to scheme. DeBoer is going to scheme up things for Jalen Milroe, right? That in and of itself is a huge help. Like you think of being Quinn Ewers. You are a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. You have all the talent in the world. And you have an offensive coordinator that is still set on making your life easier through scheming up things for you, scheming up concepts for you, getting guys open through route layering. Bama didn't have that. And I always bring that up. And I hope if there's a Texas fan, they're not thinking I'm taking a shot at Quinn there. Far from it. I'm pointing out that you have got a really solid head coach and understanding, okay, even if you are a 5-star, I don't care if you're a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, or 0-star. My job as the head coach and as an offensive mind is to make your job easier. and I'm going to do that. Bill O'Brien didn't make Bryce Young's job easier. Tommy Rees, God bless you, but he didn't make Jalen Milroe's job easier. Right? And that's why I always bring up Sark and Quinn, because I think it's a very applicable comparison to make. Quinn's got so much talent, and he is so lucky to have Sarkisian, where Sark is like, yeah, you have all the talent in the world. I'm still going to make your life easier through scheme. DeBoer will do that for Jalen Milroe. We didn't have that last year. And I think you're going to see more screen passes, more intermediate passes. I don't think I saw a running back screen all year last year. And if we did, I think I can count it on one hand how many running back screens we saw last year. That's not going to be the case this year. So just because of that alone, I think that this Alabama offense is going to be much better in the intermediate, Jimmy Lee. But now, aside from being schemed for, Milroe now gets to work with Nick Sheridan, Kalen DeBoer. He also gets to work with someone like Coach Shepard, who Coach Shepard, it was the passing game coordinator at Washington. So as brilliant as DeBoer is, listen, if Nick Sheridan gets a call and he becomes an offensive coordinator somewhere next year, I'd love for Shepard to be the guy that's next, because he has been Kalen DeBoer's passing game coordinator. And if we keep Coach Cap has been a running game coordinator at North Carolina. I know he was the offensive coordinator and his rushing attack was fantastic, but I believe he's been running game coordinators in the past. Don't hold me to that, actually. I don't know why. I just got this eerie feeling like I don't know that that's right. But he's been an offensive coordinator, so he could be a run game coordinator. And you could let Coach Shepard be the offensive coordinator because he was the passing game coordinator. Now, the reason why I bring that to your attention, you have DeBoer working with Milroe. You have Nick Sheridan working with Milroe. You have Coach Shepard, who understands excellent passing game. And then Byron Ellis, the tight end coach, is, oh boy, I did a thumbs up. That's my bad. That was stupid. Stupid, Ty. But, we're back. Ellis, the tight ends coach, he was at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi. And he put up video game numbers with Bailey Zappi. Lisa Fitzhugh, thank you for the $10 donation. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the discourse in here. I appreciate y'all's time. And I certainly appreciate the monetary support. She says, I find solid value in Ty having dialogue with the Bama Bashers here. The points made are both informative and entertaining at times. Go Ty, go. Yeah, listen, I love debate. I've always loved to debate. So if someone comes in here and has a difference of opinion, we can have that conversation. We can easily have that conversation. Yeah, Bama hater. I find no ill will towards you, my man. We're having a conversation. It's all love from my end. It allows me to have someone have a difference of opinion, and then I can formulate arguments that we don't get to hear a lot of the times. So I have zero issues with it. Plus, we're at the end of the segment. You know what I mean? It's a great way to close the day down. Tie teams will have to decide if they want to stop the run, risk ours. Yes. This running room is going to be wild. Wild. I love this running back room for Alabama. Hey, did your buddy played at WKU from 2000? Yeah, so you know about Ellis. He was out there orchestrating things beautifully. I think KD likes the OC to also coach quarterback. I think Ellis is the coordinator in training. Could be, Kelly. Could be. That could certainly be the case. I just really don't want to lose Shepard. I mean, you'll remember, Kelly, because you were here. And this is certainly a great insight in this comment. So sorry. Thank you for commenting this. Whenever Grubb and Huff were being looked at for Seattle, you remember, I didn't think we'd lose either of them. I was wrong, right? I was wrong. So, learning experience for me. But the name I was like, I really don't want to miss is Coach Shepard. Ty, what will your opinion be of DeBoer if Bama? Listen, if Bama goes 8-4, I'll be disappointed, but I also think that he needs time to grow. It's just like this. Miami didn't instantly become a great team year one. Like they weren't making the college football playoffs year one under Mario Cristobal. He needs time to develop his guys. He needs time to develop his schemes. Now, the reason why I have confidence, Bama hater, is because he inherited a team in Washington that was 4-8. The next year, he took them 11-2. The year after that, he went 14-1, 7-0 against Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and Lincoln Riley. So some of the better coaches in the nation he has handled. That's why I have confidence. But if he goes 8-4, I'm not going to lie to you and say I'm not disappointed. I will be disappointed, but I also think that there's a fine line between like, it depends. First off, it depends how the 8-4 comes. Like if Bama gets their tails kicked in a bunch of games, I'll be pretty ticked. But if Bama plays really good football and they take some close losses where I can come in here and reasonably be like, okay, that sucks. That's super disappointing, but we're going to continue on like this is a growing year, then it's all love. Now, if Bama goes 8-4 and Miami makes the playoffs, I'll give you guys all the props in the world. I'm not going to shy away from that. If y'all make the playoffs, hats off to you, man. That's awesome. That's awesome for you. That's awesome for Miami. That's awesome for all Miami fans. That will be my answer. Bama better than Washington last year. I think they had more talent. But yeah, Bama hater, that would be my position. It depends how those losses come, what those losses look like. The reason why I'm so confident is because he inherited a team, even after what Alabama lost in the transfer portal, what he is inheriting right now is still way better than what he inherited at Washington. Way better. He inherited a 4-8 program that really needed turning around. Bama just needs a bit of WD-40. He needed to rebuild an engine block at Washington. Is Alabama not loaded? Yeah, Alabama's super loaded, Fred. Alabama's super loaded. But at Washington, Bama hater, he needed to rebuild the engine block, right? Like, it's almost like, imagine you have a supercar out there. The supercar is only as good as the engine you put in it. At Washington, he had to rebuild an engine. At Alabama, he's just got to put some WD-40 on that bad boy. And yes, maybe there's some areas of the engine that we need to fix. I'm not going to shy away from that. But the main structure of the engine is there. It doesn't have to be assembled from nothing like he had to do at Washington. That's why I think myself and Bama fans are confident, is because the foundation is there. Building an engine, building a house, right? At Washington, he had to create the foundation and then go from there. At Bama, the foundation is laid. You just have to do a bit of repairs. Fred Turner, thank you for the $5. Thank you for the $5. Why do you guys keep playing with the sound? My brother in Christ, I didn't have consistent internet until I got to college. If you think I know how to be messing with the sound to mess with you, you give me far too much credit. Oh, I certainly don't believe that's what will happen, Jordan. I certainly don't believe that Bama going 8-4 is going to happen. I am of the belief that 9-3 is about where like the floor is. And I think 10-2 is where we're realistically looking at. I think 9-3 would be, I think that's the floor, right? 9-3. I think 10-2 is what we're looking at. But I completely agree with you right here. Understand we had Tommy Rees last season. He was holding the whole offense up. Seems like everybody is developing rapidly under DeBoer. I couldn't agree more, Jordan Bradley. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for the comment. Thank you very much once again, Fred Turner, for the $5 super sticker. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been in here for 2 hours. We are going to hop off. I need to go get some breakfast. I need to eat. Washington had a pretty good, but Peterson was a few years removed, Brad in the Borough. Like Jimmy Lake came in there and it was an abject disaster. But you're right. Like Peterson did a good thing, but he needed to do a lot. Oh, I don't underestimate the talent Washington had, Kelly. But I think where I say Bama has more talent is Washington had a lot of talent that was draft eligible. Bama has talent that was draft eligible this draft, next draft, and the draft after. Like they're going to continue having first rounders. I don't know how many first rounders Washington has left in the chamber. Not to say that they don't, but I think when you look at it, that's what we're looking at. Let's keep about current information, and yeah, 100%. 11-1. I think 11-1 is very reasonable. I think 11-1 is very reasonable. I think 10-2, 11-1, very reasonable. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hop out of here. I need to eat. I need to get something to eat. I need to watch some film, do my thing. But thank you very much for everybody for being in here. You guys make this an unbelievable show. You make this an unbelievable time. I can't really tell you how much I appreciate every single one of you for taking the time to watch. Time and health, your two most valuable assets, and you are giving me your time just sitting here listening to me, and especially for contributing into the conversation. That makes my job so much easier than you could even realize, is when we have so many great comments like we had today. Makes my job a lot easier, makes it a lot more fun, and I appreciate everybody for being in here. I will see you all possibly this evening. I might hop on this evening at 7 with Coach Sean, Coach Jay, but I will for sure be back tomorrow morning, and we'll continue on the conversations. Until then, roll tide and allow me to introduce you to the other member of the panel, the spinning wheel of doom, and it spins.